are two main types of feathers: contour feathers, which cover the body and the wings, and down feathers. They exist in non-uniform tracts and are composed of keratin. Feathers are replaced once or twice a year through a molting process in which the feathers are lost in a specific order: head, neck, body, wings, and finally the tail. Laying hens tend to only molt when they stop producing eggs, but the modern strains of laying hens are genetically modified to be able to molt without ceasing egg production. Bird skin is usually lacking in glands, but it does have a large bilobed sebaceous gland called the uropygial gland that opens dorsally at the base of the tail. Its oily secretions are distributed throughout the feathers by way of preening. The earlobes are modified areas of skin that decorate the side of the head of chickens near the external ear. The color of the earlobe is correlated with the color of the eggshell, so for this chicken, the egg will be just as white as the depicted earlobe. The comb exists on the dorsal midline, or the top of the head, and varies in size, shape, and color radically from species to species. The wattle dangles from the ventral face below the beak. Both of these features are most likely associated with sexual display. Birds don't have jaws, but rather have beaks that are covered by thick keratin epidermis. Birds also don't have teeth to grind food, and their triangular tongue lacks taste buds, so their food must be swallowed. The important muscles that make up the wing are the biceps brachii, the triceps brachii, and the deltoideus. The biceps brachii runs ventral to the humerus and flexes the wing while extending the shoulder. The triceps brachii runs dorsal to the humerus and flexes the shoulder while extending the wing. The deltoideus is a thin, sheet-like muscle that covers the shoulder and is responsible for flexing the shoulder and rotating the wing outwards. The two key breast muscles also happen to be key in the movement of the wings. The superficial pectoral or pectoralis major is the largest muscle in birds and is also responsible for the downstroke of the wing. The supracoracoideus exists deep within the pectoralis major and is responsible for the upstroke of the wing. This movement would not be possible without the natural pulley system made by a tendon from the supracoracoideus. The gastrocnemius, located dorsally on the calf, flexes the knee and extends the foot. The tibialis anterior, located ventrally on the calf, flexes the tarsometatarsus forward. The iliotibialis is a sheet-like muscle that covers most of the thigh. It is responsible for flexing the hip and extending the knee and lower leg. The sartorius is a long, thin, band muscle on the ventral border of the thigh. It is responsible for flexing the hip and extending the knee. The semitendinosus exists dorsal to the iliotibialis and is responsible for extending the thigh. The semimembranosus exists caudal to the semitendinosus and is responsible for extending the thigh and flexing the knee. The adductor longus exists caudal to the semimembranosus and is responsible for extending and adducting the thigh. The quadriceps femoris is posterior to the sartorius and is responsible for extending the thigh. The ambiens is a thigh muscle with a tendon that allows birds to bend their toes.
Starting with the most visually obvious part of the reproductive system, you have large yellow follicles. The first follicle is identified as F1, then you have the F2, and then the F3, and so on in order of largest to smallest. The small yellow follicles will eventually replace the larger ones after they ovulate. Then the small white follicles will replace the small yellow follicles. The stigma of the follicle is non-vascular and it is where follicular rupture occurs during ovulation. If a hen is not in lay, the ovary will be very small and red in color. In most avians, only the left ovary and oviduct continue to grow. Now, you start in the left side of the abdominal cavity at the ovary. Then you move to the post-ovulatory follicle after ovulation for the remaining follicular structure. Next, you come to the infundibulum, which is a site for sperm storage and also leads the oocyte to the magnum, which is part of the oviduct that contains glands to produce and secrete albumin and other proteins for the egg. After approximately 2 hours, the oocyte moves to the isthmus for 1 to 2 hours, so the egg membrane can form. Now is the longest part of the reproductive system, which is the uterus, also known as the shell gland. This is where the formation and pigmentation of the shell occurs for approximately 20 hours. Next, you have the vagina that separates the uterus and cloaca. At the junction with the uterus, you can find glands that store sperm. Finally, you have the cloaca, which is the opening of the body where the beautiful egg will be laid.
The mouth of a chicken is a beak which features no teeth and a triangular tongue. After deglutition, the pharynx slides caudally to the oral cavities, which precedes the esophagus. In the esophagus is the crop, a muscular organ that stores food and water temporarily. The chicken possesses a bipartite stomach. The first chamber is the proventricularis, or glandular stomach. The proventricularis provides pepsin and hydrochloric acid for digestion. The second chamber is the gizzard, or muscular stomach. The gizzard effectively grinds up large food particles, such as seeds, that are swallowed whole. The duodenum directly follows the gizzard, with the pancreas between the ascending and descending loop. The ascending loop also receives the two bile ducts, which carry bile from the liver and the gallbladder to the duodenum. The liver is bilobed and lies between the sternum and the body wall. The longest segment of the small intestine is the gingium. The shorter ileum ends at the large intestine, marked by the presence of twin ceca. The cecae digest fiber through microorganisms. The colon is short and straight and ends at a sphincter between the large intestine and the cloaca. All digestive waste and urine is excreted through the cloaca.
For the respiratory system, you start with the glottis, which is the opening of the trachea. Following air into the trachea, you come to the bifurcation, which results in two primary bronchi. The cartilaginous part of the structure is called the syrinx, which is where sound is produced in avians. Following this, you come to the lungs and the air sacs. These air sacs provide efficiency for the avian respiratory system, which is more efficient than most other species. These air sacs are very thin-walled extensions from the lungs. They allow for a continuous stream of air to pass through the tissues in one direction. Two of these air sacs can be found in the abdominal cavity, lying dorsolaterally to the intestines, and 4 other pairs of air sacs can be found in the cranial and caudal thorax. There is no diaphragm in avians because the intercostal muscles are the major muscles for respiration and the abdominal muscles are the major muscles for expiration. Also, avians do not have sweat glands, so they rely on their respiratory system for cooling.
The kidneys process out toxins from the body and produce urea. This urea then travels down the ureter, which are smooth muscle tubes that transport the urea. In avian species, the kidneys are trilobed, and the ureter carries the urea directly from the kidneys to the cloaca, where it is expelled from the body. The heart is surrounded by the pericardial sac. This membrane has 2 layers, one serous and one fibrous, and the pericardial space between them is filled with pericardial fluid. This fluid reduces friction on the heart and provides lubrication. The heart itself is comprised of 4 chambers. Blood flows into the heart from the superior and inferior vena cava vessels into the right atrium. From there, it flows into the right ventricle and is carried by the pulmonary artery to the lungs to be oxygenated. The pulmonary veins carry the oxygenated blood back into the heart to the left ventricle. From there, it is carried into the left atrium and distributed out into the body via the aorta. The coronary artery is the first branch off of the aorta and supplies oxygenated blood to the heart.
You know, well, I'm a chicken fried and cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio.